Conservative firebrand Ann Coulter is at it again, stirring up controversy with her new book, Guilty: Liberal Victims and Their Assault on America. And Ann is with us live in the studio this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
You know what? You want to be taken seriously. I think I sense that, right?
Yes.
Don't you? Right?
Well, I make serious points, but often in a humorous way. For example, with you, Harry, because today you are the most brilliant person in the mainstream media.
Right.
The most manly. And I am totally reconsidering my approach of attacking everyone in the media I then want to interview me for my books.
See, because there you have it. Here's what, because I took you seriously. I read 150 pages of your book.
You did. Wasn't it fun?
Night. Well, it's not exactly. Here's my problem. Because you try to be funny, because you have this kind of sophomoric, sort of simplistic kind of view of so many things, the points that should be taken seriously, this whole section on single motherhood should be part of the American conversation right now.
Yes.
Because you're so goofy, who's going to take you seriously?
Well, for one thing, I think any comedy writer will tell you sophomoric is New York Times code for funny. So I thank you for that. And I do think people take me seriously. If they're not reading the book, they're not getting any of it seriously. And I'll use as an example what we've all been joking about today, or you've all been joking, that line from the book. Where I quote you,
right?
And it wasn't just you. I mean, everyone was saying it, but that is a serious point I'm making, which is everyone was talking about how. Oh, you want to read the quote?
Well, no. Here's because
that is such a beautiful line. You see, that is my point.
Here's what's serious about this. All right, a friend of mine who was a liberal talk show host in Denver was gunned down in his front yard. He was assassinated. I stood in front of the Murrah Federal Building. I have looked hate in the eye. I know that there are people in this country who would be interested in the death of not only Barack Obama, but any president. That was a legitimate question to ask
but the
Ted Kennedy.
I make in the book.
The point you make
I think
at my expense.
Not at your expense. At everyone talking about as if Obama is at some unique risk for assassination. And as I go through in the book,
you don't think as an African American that he was at some greater risk?
No, I do not. Right. Because every presidential assassin or attempted presidential assassin in the history of the nation has either been a liberal, a communist, an anarchist, someone on the left, or there were two who had no politics whatsoever, unless you count John Hinckley,
which goes back to your basic point that everything that's wrong with America is the left's fault.
I wouldn't have mentioned that all these presidential assassins were anarchists, communists, liberals. They were some form of, basically Obama's base, other than the fact that everyone keeps talking about Obama being at some unique risk when, I'm sorry, Sean Hannity's at greater risk, Rush Limbaugh's at greater risk. I promise you George Bush is at greater risk. He has been physically attacked 2 weeks ago. There's a book fantasizing about George Bush's assassination. There's a movie, a documentary fantasizing about George Bush's assassination. And there are more hits on Google for Obama and assassination than Bush and assassination. So maybe we can stop talking about the threat of right-wing violence in a country that is teeming with left-wing violence. At the Democratic National Convention.
Take a breath.
Take a breath. Protesters, I'm breathing fine.
Take a breath. Here's my other thing.
They have protester after protester.
So I actually did read your book.
At Democratic National Convention with Molotov cocktails, with guns. You don't find conservative protesters like that at the Democratic National Convention. So yes, you cite a few rare examples.
But that doesn't.
That's why we look at statistics.
Okay, but I made that point from a literal. My own personal experience, not from some.
You're not certifiably insane. I love you today, Harry Smith. But it was a very funny interview. You must admit that, because he was refusing to even understand what you were saying, and you kept saying things like, I'm thinking of a word and it begins with the letter A. And Teddy Kennedy was refusing to understand what you were saying, so that's why I quoted. It's a funny interview.
Here's my only other real serious point about this. You talk about victims and victimhood in America, which I think is a serious problem. On the other hand, the more I listened to your complaints, the more I kept thinking, well, you're the whiner. You're the one who's claiming victimhood here, that you're the victim of this great left-wing conspiracy.
No, I'm not, but there are real victims.
If there was a real live left-wing conspiracy, how do you account
Well, it's
for
not
a Republican president being elected and then reelected?
It's amazing it happens because of the great wisdom of the American people. But the point is, I'm not saying I am the victim. I'm saying that by playing victim, real victims are created. You have millions of unborn babies. They are real victims. You have the Duke lacrosse players, real victims. You have George Bush, the most persecuted, attacked, and assassination movies and books president, I think, since Richard Nixon. You have Joe McCarthy. You have Robert Bork. You have Tom DeLay. Everyone who was identified as an oppressor. Sarah
Tom DeLay
Palin.
is a victim?
Yes, and all the ones who are
what?
identified as oppressors are always genuinely the victims, and the ones who are the play victims are in fact the oppressors.
You should have a cross. You should put yourself up.
No, but I'm not citing me. I'm citing the real victims whom I'm defending and demanding that this perpetual motion machine of the liberal victimization machine, playing victim while oppressing others, the millions of illegitimate children born every year, the people who are mugged by the millions of illegitimate children born every year, they are genuine victims.
It's the liberals' fault.
Illegitimacy is certainly something that I think I document quite thoroughly, has been promoted through the media, the courts, and the federal government as something that is celebrated and promoted by the left wing in America. It was a plan. It wasn't an accident. And that's why the illegitimacy rate has gone up by 300% since 1970.
And a final thought, and your dissolution of your relationship with the National Review in the final discussion, and the editor who was offering an explanation, he said, the deeper you get with Ann, the less sense she makes.
Yes, I do not have a lot of fans among conservative authors who don't sell as many books as I do.
There you go.